welcome to the Cat Knits podcast. I'm Kat, or Catherine, and this is my monthly knitting podcast where I chat all about the things that I've been making or acquiring or planning to make knitting-wise. So this month, I'm going to do something a little different for the podcast. I'm kind of do a bit more vlog style. I'm going to include some clips of me early in February just because I kind of treat February as my beginning of the year. I find January 1st is just a little too rushed with all the other things that are going on. So at the beginning of February every year, what I do is I grab all my knitting supplies from everywhere, every corner of my apartment. So all my works in progress, all my needles that are lying around, finished projects that are in the wrong spot perhaps, things that I need to rip out, and I just collect it all in one place and I go through it. I go through my entire yarn stash, and one of my big goals is just to, with this project, is to really familiarize myself with what projects I still have on the needles and what yarn I've purchased and kind of let sit in these boxes. I have to say though that I've been doing a good job of kind of keeping my stash at a certain level. That's something that I like to do. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own preference for how much yarn they're happy to have around their house. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment in the city, so the amount of space I have to store all my knitting gear and equipment is kind of limited, and it can just easily kind of turn into a big mound of unorganized clump of things. So in order to kind of keep things organized, I do need to make sure that I'm keeping more of a minimalist approach. For my yarn this time, I actually chose a few pieces that I'd like to donate because I've now been knitting for probably around 4 or 5 years pretty solid, and there's some yarn that I've bought kind of near the beginning of my knitting journey that I, as Marie Kondo would say, no longer brings me joy. So I think it's time to find a new home for that. I'm not sure if you live in the Vancouver area and you know of places I can donate it. That would be great. We do have these little yarn libraries that are scattered throughout the city. Though I think they're little craft libraries, which are basically like big bird houses that people have in their front yards or in their backyards, or perhaps in like community spaces where you can kind of, drop off craft supplies and pick up craft supplies. I think very similar to like those like open free libraries. So that was my first idea for the yarn. The yarn itself that I want to donate, like for instance, there's quite a bit of lace yarn, which is, it's all really good quality yarn. I think the lace yarn is like silk and merino, but it is lace yarn. So if someone was learning how to knit, I'd feel pretty bad if they picked up my lace yarn and then decided that they were going to knit a project with it. So that's my only, gripe with maybe trying to donate that lace yarn to one of those places. I don't want to discourage someone from knitting because I've given them yarn that's actually can be quite, it's so fine, it can be kind of frustrating to work with. So yeah, just let me know if you have any thoughts about that. So after I go through all my works in progress, I then like to count them all. So I actually had 15 this year, and I like to go through them all. So now I filmed myself going through all my works in progress. And at this point, I didn't know how many I had, so I'll switch to that clip. I collected all my works in progresses, and they're actually sitting on the couch beside me. I haven't gone through them yet. The pile is bigger than what I was hoping. It's currently February 7th, which means that I've got 3 more weeks to finish everything. So I think I'm gonna have to do a little bit of pruning with what I decide to do. In the first week, I chose kind of the easiest works in progress, and this is a pair of socks that I'm knitting for my husband. Oh, I forgot, let me grab the finished one. I'm knitting these socks in Fidley Dyeworks. It's a BFL nylon yarn. I absolutely love this yarn. It's a local company, so they're in Vancouver. It's hand dyed, and this color is called Alistair. I don't think you can buy this color anymore. And I'm just using a very basic sock pattern, the gusset heel. And I've already made my husband 1 pair of socks, so this is his second. But at the beginning of February, I was up here, and so now you can see over the past week, I'm now at the part where I'm doing the heel. So I would say I probably have another maybe a week left of these, so that's gonna be 2 weeks of my February, most likely. We are going away for a week-long beach vacation, so my plan is to stop working on these and kind of save them for the plane and the beach. Okay, so this is my works in progress number 1. Number 2, let's see what we got in here. Okay, so this one is a sweater, and it is the Seli cardigan by Aleks Byrd. Let's see if I've got the pattern in here. So it's a cardigan which you end up knitting in the round and then steeking, and it's knit. It's got Estonia design elements, so it has these little decorations that go all the way down the sleeves. And it is knit in another BFL. This is a BFL Shetland yarn from Forge and Fibre, which is, again, yarn local to me. It's undyed. It's a fingering weight sweater, just like the socks. They're knit in fingering weight. And then I've got Blue Sky Fibres. I think it's Woolstok Light, which I'm doing the design elements in. As you can see, I have got a long ways to go. I'm actually still currently, I haven't divided for the sleeves yet. It's a bit like intarsia, where you need to create mini skeins of each color and then you kind of work back and forth. And since for the actual design elements you're holding it double, so it's going from both the inside and the outside of the ball, it just results in quite a bit of yarn mess. This is number 2, and I would say I'm probably not going to work on it this month, just because this is going to probably take me, 1 to 2 months to knit completely. And I'd like to just get all the easy projects done. So number 2 is this cardigan. While going through my stash, I ended up using Ziploc bags for all my projects just to separate them. I realized I don't have very many yarn projects bags. In fact, I only have 2. I've got this one by Lone Larch, which I won at Knit City Vancouver a few years ago, and then I've got this one, which I just realized has my other works in progress in it, so I better put those over there, which is the Hohe & Co. Santa Cruz bag. But perhaps when I go to another yarn festival, I might pick up some more works in progress bag. So we'll see what's actually in the Hohe & Co. one first. I tend to collect any cotton bag that I get from clothing stores or anything like that. I collect it and then I use it as my project bag. Oh yeah, so this is another cardigan, which will be steeked. And this is by Wallin, and it's the Unst sweater. So just like the Seli cardigan, I don't think I'm gonna work on this much this month. So basically there are 11 different colors that you do to knit a Fair Isle cardigan, and it's knit from the bottom up. The pattern is actually designed to be knit back and forth with like the front 2 panels and then the back panel and then mattress stitched up the side, but instead I'm gonna knit it in the round and then steek it. And as you can see, I've just kind of got to the beginning of the color works. This is very much in the beginning stages. This is a lot of fun. This is actually this has been my favorite knit in January. So it'll be sad to kind of put this down for a month. I might cheat and sneak in a few rows here and there. We'll see. But this is knit with Jamison's, it's the wool that was required in the pattern, and it's the Jamison and Shetland. Jamison's of Shetland. There's 2 that have very similar names. This is the Jamison's Shetland, and it's the Spindrift yarn, which I think is considered like a sport yarn. It's 100% Shetland. And Shetland yarn, which was actually in my other cardigan, is kind of a bit more of like a woolier wool, and it's quite weak. But it's going to be beautiful because I've got those 11 different colors. So this is another one that I'm probably not going to spend much time on, and this is number 3. So we've got 2 cardigans so far. And I'll actually just move this over there too. This has just got some needles in it now. And Goose has just decided to snuggle right up against me, which is cute. Looks like I've got some extra in there. All right, let's see what's in this one. Oh yes, okay, so this is some projects that I want to unravel. They are, you know, works in progress, but they're going back. So this is some yarn that I picked up at Rhinebeck, and it is by, can't remember the name, it's a Spinnery, Mountain something Spinnery. And I was knitting a Sari Nordlund pattern, but I didn't think the yarn and the pattern were a good match. In fact, I'm not really a big fan of this yarn, and I actually have 5 skeins of it, which is a ton. It's a worsted weight, 100% American wool yarn. It's 2 colors that are applied together. My plan is to kind of make some kids' camping sweaters in it because it'll be very warm, very rustic, and I think it'll hide any imperfections, and I won't really need to worry about having this look like nice yarn. So these are things that I want to just deal with this month. I want to unravel this and then take out the needles. So this should really only take part of an evening. The other project though that's in here that I want to unravel is this shawl. This was my first multi-skein project. I'll post the name of this because I can't quite remember what it was. This is knit with Dream in Colors Jilly yarn, which is a single-stranded, hand-dyed, 100% merino fingering weight yarn, and you hold it double so that you can do these kind of fade sections. So you hold 1 of each color for sections, and then you kind of go back to holding 2 of the same color, and you go back and forth. And it's really quite beautiful, but I don't wear shawls. So I started ripping this out, and then I went ahead and I actually knit, I ripped it out a little bit, and then I knit this sock. And this is the Everyday sock by Andrea Mowry, but it is the DK weight version, which I think is called like the bear paw sock possibly, because it was named after the Fibre Co. or Farmer's Daughter's Fibres DK weight yarn, I believe. I realized though, well, number 1, I knit this whole sock and it doesn't fit, which is no good. And number 2, oh, Goose left. Number 2, the yarn that I chose to knit a sock in is just really not a sock yarn. It doesn't have any nylon in it. It's a single ply, so it's gonna very easily just wear through. So I decided I actually want to rip these out. So I want to rip out both of these so that I have this yarn to use. Ripping out the shawl is a bit of a pain in the butt because you have to separate the strands. So this is where these are kind of the balls that I hand wound from ripping out the first half of the shawl. So this will take a while. Like I could see this taking multiple nights, but this is something I also would love to do this week. I think, like I said, I'm gonna switch away from the socks because the socks I can do while I'm on vacation in a couple of weeks. Oh, Goose is now trying to sneak by the tripod. We'll see if she wins, but I think she will compared to the size of the tripod. We'll see though, maybe she'll back up. I might need to readjust. So this is what I'm definitely doing. I might count this is 1 and this is another, which means we are now up to 5. So we were at 3 before, 4, 5. And I know that I have another project in here that I actually want to rip out. So let me find that one. Oh, here it is, perfect. This is number 6. So this is the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along Shawl from 2022. I'm almost positive. Oh, Goose did manage to beat the tripod and come on up. Are you gonna come on up? Just come on up. So when I got up, Goose jumped up, and now it looks like she's gonna try to walk right by the tripod again. I think it's gonna be fine though. We'll see how she actually does. But I got distracted there, so I was talking about this project, which is another project that I'd like to rip out. And this is the Seamless shawl, as I mentioned. And this is knit in the same yarn as the socks that I just showed. So the socks that I was making for my husband, the Fidley Dyeworks BFL yarn. I absolutely love this yarn. The reason why I chose it for the shawl is I had a sneaking suspicion that I might not finish it. I really wasn't a fan of this design. It was entertaining and I learned a lot. But as I mentioned, I'm pulling out that other shawl because I didn't wear shawls and it just didn't make sense for me to continue. I love this yarn. I want to move this yarn into other projects. So I'd really love to rip this out. And that shouldn't take too long. I think these ripping out projects will be good ones to do when my brain isn't really functioning too well and I just want to make progress on something but not have to think too much. Okay, so how many was I at? 6 works in progress. On a similar vein, this is something that I want to fix this month. So this Finish It Feb is kind of a little bit about just tidying up all these projects that I have. Oh, here she goes by the... Are you gonna just come on up? Oh, okay. She did a much better job the second time jumping up. So this is the Cumulus Blouse by PetiteKnit. It's a lovely knit. It's a very popular pattern, and I understand why. It's a top-down raglan V-neck with I-cord edging on, you know, the neck, the bottom, and the sleeves. But unfortunately, I knit this too short. So typically, or the sleeves are too short, I should say. So typically this is what's called to be knit with 2 strands of mohair, but instead I decided to knit it with a sport weight. That is a Sari alpaca with a cotton and wool core, I believe. It's the Cirro yarn by the Fibre Co. I absolutely love this yarn. It's such a lightweight, gorgeous sweater, and I want to be able to wear this when the weather gets better. I just need to add maybe like 1.5 inches to each sleeve. I was going to rip out the I-cord just so that I can have another chance at doing the edges because I didn't totally love how I joined it up when I joined it up in the round. So this should be this is like a couple night project. It's so funny, I have quite a few of these projects that are just like a couple night projects, but it's just hard to actually get around to doing them. Okay, so this is number 7. Number 8, oh, okay, I can see number 8 and 9 here. We got 2 pairs of socks. This is on the same vein. This pair is by Andrea Mowry. It's her, can't remember what this sock is actually called anymore, but she does that make along every Thanksgiving. I've participated in 3 of them. So those bare paw socks that I'm gonna rip out, that was, I think, maybe just 2023's. Possibly, and I think this might have been 2022's. I knit these, but they were way too big for me, so I ended up giving them to my husband. And then what happened though is where the afterthought heel got joined in, it's just starting to unravel a bit. So I just need to go back and fix this up. These are knit with Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock, which is a merino nylon. And then I think this is now, it's been renamed. It was Chasing Rabbits to Baker Co, I believe. It's a hand-dyed Texas yarn, also I believe a merino. Also, these were super wash yarns, which when I blocked them, they grew. So it wasn't totally my fault that I knit them so big that a women's 7.5 and they went to like a men's 10. So that's the first pair of socks that I'd like to fix up. These ones are for me. So these are knit in this Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock, which I've done a lot of projects in and I really do like it. But just like the other socks, these did grow a lot after blocking. And unfortunately, these socks, I haven't been able to wear them. So I finished these I finished them in my 30th year and I'm going to be turning 33. So it'd be nice to actually wear these. I designed this colorwork motif that's at the top of the sock. And they're both too long and way too wide now that I can't wear them in boots and be comfortable. So what I would like to do to fix them is actually, these also have an afterthought heel. So I'm going to keep the heel and I'm going to probably rip back to maybe just before the heel. but I'm gonna do these like decreases that you would see on like a gusset sock. So I'll add those decreases in there so that I can really decrease the circumference of the foot. I'll probably need to add like 8 decreases, like they're very, very baggy. I'll have to do a little bit of math, but that'll require me knitting a huge portion of the foot, and that's 2 different socks. This might be another good beach project. Maybe I'll bring just socks to do on the beach to finish. So I was at 7, so this is 8, 9, which is scary. We're gonna be at 10 very soon, and there's still a lot of projects. So this is something that I also need to figure out what I'm gonna do with. Well, actually, I guess this is the first one I need to figure out, but these are the World's Simplest Mittens. These are also knit in Tough Love Sock by Sweet Georgia. Sweet Georgia is in Vancouver, which is where I am. I do tend to like to use local wool if I can. I knit the Oslo hat with this. So this is their Tough Love Sock held with their Cloud Mist, I believe, which is their mohair silk lace weight yarn. So it's a fingering and a lace weight, which kind of creates like a DK weight yarn. I weighed the fingering yarn thinking, you know, that will be the one that I run out of. So I should make sure I have enough of that to be able to make these awesome mitts. But unfortunately what I ran out of was the mohair yarn. And I really wanted to have like the Oslo hat matching with this pair of mitts. But now that I've run out of yarn, I have 2 options. One is to rip these out and knit them in a smaller size that would need quite a bit less yarn. The other is to go and buy another skein of the Silk Mist. The Silk Mist is probably going to be like $20 to $30 Canadian. I don't know if I want to spend that just to finish these mitts. It would be a lot of fun to have a matching mitt and glove set. I just think it's very cute. But I don't know if this is what I want to do with my yarn dollars. This was a lot of fun to knit, a great little project, great gift project. So that'll be something I need to make a decision on relatively, I got the month, I got a couple weeks, but I want to figure out if I'm going to rip it out or I'm going to knit with it. Okay, so here's actually one that should be a quick one to finish. Okay, so that was number, oh no, I've lost track. It was 7 and then I think it was 8, 9. So that's number 10. Okay, so number 10. So now I'll start a new pile so it'll be easier to count. We've now got to the double digits. We're cemented in the double digits. This one though shouldn't take that long to finish. This is the R&R Hoodie by Tennis. I can't remember what her last name is. It's this awesome little, cute little hoodie. I knit this in Noro yarn. Can't remember the name of it. I'll put it below. It is I think it's an Aran weight cotton blend. I think there might be like some silk and viscose in there. It was a lot of fun. I don't really love working with cotton yarns because I find them very drying, but the pattern itself is super engaging and I think it turns out super cute. As you can see, this is actually what I did the first night of February with my goal of finishing it Feb. But the zipper was just the wrong choice on so many levels. It didn't open up at the bottom. I got a closed-ended zipper. Doesn't work for a cardigan. And the teeth were way too small. So thankfully my friend, so nice of her, she actually gave me one of her zippers so I can use this in the cardigan, or in the zip up. I originally did hand stitch this. I could machine stitch this, but I think I am gonna hand knit it. Excuse me. I think I am gonna hand stitch it just so it'll be easier to rip out if I end up doing it wrong. This should only be a couple nights at most, so this is definitely something I want to get done. This is number 11. Speaking of Noro yarns, this is a fun one that I started not too long ago, and this is the 10 stitch blanket, which is a garter stitch blanket. You start at the center and then you like pick up along the edges and you just keep knitting around and around. I'm on to my 3rd ball, and this is how much yarn I have left. So I will need to go get some more yarn. It's very addicting. It's very easy. I want this to be about 3 to 4 feet. So I've probably, you know, I'm less than halfway. I think I'm kind of at, I'm almost at 2 feet, I would say. But with each ball, you get less further around. So I probably definitely have at least 3 to 6 more balls that I need to knit. So I got to go buy some more yarn from the yarn store, which maybe I'll make a decision on the glove and then go to the yarn store and see what I want to do, if I want to buy that silk mist or not. This is more of a big project, just like the cardigans. So I'm not going to work on this month. I've got lots of other things I can do, and I'm happy if this one takes over. I start again in March because I started this in January, December-ish. So it's a very new project that I don't need to be worried about too much. This is number 12. Number 13 is another new project, relatively. I started this in November, and this is a advent calendar for Christmas. And this is the day number 1, so you end up knitting 24 mitts. My original plan was to knit 2 a month, so that I'd have 2 done in January, 2 done in February, and then I'd have 24 done by Christmas next year. It's now February, and I haven't made any progress on this since November, which just goes to show how easily distracted I get. This is a knit with Holst garn. It's knit with their super soft yarn. Each month is a little bit different, so I have 6 colors. I've got this gray, a white, a red, a green, a yellow, and a brown, because I want to be able to do like Santa and reindeer and the Christmas tree and all that kind of fun stuff. So it would be awesome if this month, if I could kind of get back to it and knit. I would need to finish this pair and then knit 2 more pairs to be back on track. These are pretty time-consuming little mitts, so it might be a little unrealistic to think that I can get there. But you know what? I think maybe my goal should be at least to finish this pair. And as you can see, they've got little hearts. I don't know if you can see that, but they've got hearts at the top, which is very appropriate for February and Valentine's Day. I'm knitting these with an interesting needle, which is part of the reason why I think I'm struggling to actually work on these. These are the Addy clicks. They're like halfway between a DPN and an in the round needle. I haven't loved working with them. I haven't really adjusted to working with them though yet. So I really do need to knit like probably at least another 3 pairs or another 3 mitts before I really know how these work and if I can trust them. Oh, Goose is coming over. This one might be more of a stretch project. I would love though to get this done. So this is number 13. Obviously this project will not be completely done in February. Number 14 is these Lindahl mitts. This is another recent project that I got this yarn for Christmas, and you knit these beautiful mittens with them. So this is a fingering weight yarn. It's a 1-size pattern. As you can see, the pattern itself is very intricate. It's got garter stitch top with like provisional cast on and color work and little short row sections. These are knit on a size 0 needle, so they're super dense. And then you've got some Latvian braids and some color work. So this is a huge project. I knit the first one and I came across this very unfortunate realization. They are way too small. So there's actually 4 of us knitting these gloves and 2 people have gone up a needle size. So I'm gonna knit the second one up a needle size and just kind of see how much bigger that makes it. These are knit in a very cool yarn. These are knit in plied yarn, which is a yarn we came across while at Rhinebeck this past year. And it's this gorgeous plied yarn. It's knit, this is the main color, and then you get these bobbins. So I've got 6 different bobbins, which just have 6 different little colors, so you get to kind of adjust through them. So this is project 14. I don't think I'm gonna work on this one just because these mitts would take me probably a month to complete, and I don't want to set myself up for failure. Plus I'm feeling a little burned with finishing that one and realizing they're too small. So that's that is a work in progress that I will get done, but not quite away. Okay, this guy. This is actually another Stephen West project that I started a while ago and just gave up on because I didn't like the colors. This is the Penguinu cardigan, or maybe it's more like a jacket for a toddler. I'm using all scrap yarn to knit this. It's an adorable pattern that has lots of intricate elements, just like any Stephen West pattern. So it's got these welts, it's got all these different sections with different textures. This is seed stitch and garter stitch, but I really didn't love the colors that I chose, which is why I just completely stopped knitting on this. And what I'd like to do is rip this out, and then I can put my needles back to where they need to be. So this is gonna be another rip out project, which means I think I have 4 rip out projects, but the rip out project should be easy to do and definitely something I can do this February. There should be no doubt about that. So that's number 14. And then last but not least, this is my first Fair Isle project. This is actually the Fair Isle patch cushion by Marie Wallin. It's knit in the same yarn as the cardigan that I was knitting, so it's the Jamison Shetland Spindrift. It actually uses a lot of the same colors, which is why I'm hoping I can actually knit another one of these between the leftover yarn between these 2 projects. The big thing that's just been holding me back is, 1, the number of ends that I need to weave in. This, I don't know if I'm going to weave them in. I might need to do some Googling, get creative, and then finding the pillow insert. So I have the fabric, I don't have the zipper yet, but I can get that. So I've actually, earlier this month, I ordered 2 cushion inserts from Elm. They should be arriving within a couple weeks. And then I can get the sewing machine out and actually sew the back on. It would just be so great to finish this project. I would just absolutely love that. So this is definitely a project that I want to get done. So that means I'm at 16 projects if I counted correctly, maybe plus or minus 1. I don't think I can finish 16 projects in 1 month. That means I'd have to be doing 1 every other day. Not gonna lie, I was totally shocked when I went through them all, and I was expecting to have between 5 and 10, and I really had more like, 15, 16, somewhere in there. And now what I was gonna do is talk about what work I really did do in February. So how did I do with kind of dropping my works in progress down from the 15, 16, and how far did I get? When I was filming, I was already like a quarter of the way through February. So I didn't get through as much as I wanted to, but there is quite a bit. So as you can see, I'm wearing the Cumulus Blouse by PetiteKnit. So this is one of the projects that I did manage to do this February, and this was a fix. So what I wanted to do was extend the sleeves of the sweater by about 1.5 inches. So you might be able to tell, you might not, but this is where the sweater originally ended, and then I added quite a bit of length to each sleeve. So this sweater, it's a typically knit with 2 strands of mohair. I actually knit this with 1 strand of like a Sari alpaca by the Fibre Co. called Cirro. I don't know if Cirro is being discontinued, but it seems like a lot of yarn stores are starting to put it on sale. I really liked this yarn. It's very, very soft, very light. It's considered like a sport weight yarn, which is why I was able to use 1 strand instead of 2. But it does have like a colored core. So I chose this light gray, which was called Ghost, which has a white core. And I think the white core with the gray, it doesn't stand out too much, but some of the yarns had like a black core if it was a darker color. So perhaps that's why it's been a little bit of a less popular wool. I think it seems like the Sari for me is softer than the mohair. I haven't worn this enough yet to really evaluate that, because as soon as I knit it, I think I wore it a couple times and realized that the sleeves were just like a little embarrassingly short. So then of course I was like, oh, I'll fix this right away. So I put it into my yarny pile, and then, I don't know how many months later, maybe even 6 months later, I've actually finally gotten around to fixing the sleeves, and now I can start wearing it again. But like, this is right now next to skin. I'm just wearing a tank top underneath, and I have 0 itching, whereas mohair, I do kind of get those little twinges of itchiness. But extending the sleeves was a little bit of a nightmare. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to rip out mohair or Suri alpaca. Didn't really work. I tried to, my original plan was to actually rip out this I-cord edge. I started off with ripping it out at the very beginning, and then eventually I got so frustrated that I ended up just like making a little snip in the row below and then trying to pick that out with a darning needle. And then after I did one of those like that, I got full on frustrated and I just got my scissors out and I literally cut off the end and then just went through and threaded my needles through. Oh, I do have the skein of the yarn if you just want to see what it looks like. So this is the Cirro and this is it. I do have one skein left. This color has been discontinued, so I'll have to pick something that I can knit with this. Like I said, there's 225 meters per skein, so it's about half fingering. So I'll see what I can do with it. I do like the yarn, so I'm sure I could find maybe like a small sweater or like a hat or something like that. Yeah, so this was the first project that I can tick off. This wasn't the first project that I did though. So the first thing I did was there was Super Bowl Sunday, which I think was the second weekend in February. And then that's when I really sat down and I just started ripping out all those old projects. So I ended up ripping out 4 of the, I think, 6 projects that I wanted to rip out. Ripping out projects takes a surprising amount of time. So I ripped out the, well actually I have all the yarn in here, I'll just quickly go through it. As you can see, this is one of the projects that I did not rip out, which was the Forest Grove shawl. This was like my first ever multi-skein project that I completed many, many years ago. So I ripped out the Aurelia by Sari Nordlund. The beginnings of that sweater. I'm gonna do a couple Tin Can Knits flax sweaters in this yarn is my plan. This is the American Wool Mountain Spinnery. That's an East Coast wool. Then I ripped out my West Knits make-along shawl, which I did in the Fidley Dyeworks fingering weight BFL nylon blend. I absolutely love this yarn. I bought 5 skeins for that project. I've already made 3 projects, one project which I will show today. So I'm excited to have a little over, basically I think I have now like a little over 3 skeins of this if I were to kind of collect all the different yarn. I then ripped out the Pinguinu, also by Stephen West. It's the toddler jacket. This is all that's left. I actually really liked the way this turned out. This is the back of the toddler jacket. So I decided to keep this and then I just collected all, there's just tons of these like little balls of yarns. I just didn't like the colors that I chose. So that one's all nice and ripped out. And then I ripped out the Bear Paw socks, which was also in the same yarn as the shawl. That's by Andrea Mowry and that was part of her American Thanksgiving knit along that she does. That was I think the 2022 one, and for that I got a bunch more fingering. This is single strand merino, or like single ply merino, sorry. It's fingering weight, Jilly, Dream in Color. Such a soft yarn, gorgeous vibrant colors, they're hand dyed. This is an American brand yarn, I believe. So I'm glad the Bear Paw sock, as I mentioned, it was too large, wrong yarn. I really want to knit something like the Bear Paw sock is a DK weight sock, which sounds like such a cozy idea, but what hinders me from doing a DK weight sock is that you actually need 2 skeins of sock yarn, or 2 skeins of yarn, which to me, like 2 skeins of yarn for a pair of socks, so like these are gonna be like $60 socks, like I don't know, already it seems kind of insane to me that we kind of, you know, expect 1 skein of socks, which is like, so most socks are $30, maybe even $40. So that's why I would like to try out Dre Renee knits her everyday sock pattern, but I think I'm going to end up, although I have the bear paw pattern, I'm just going to get her fingering version of the sock, which I think is like the everyday sock. I'm going to purchase that one, and then that's how I'm going to try out the pattern. I think the DK weight sock dream has kind of died, and just in the sense that that's just not how I want to kind of allocate my wool for one pair of socks. Okay, I think that was all the 4 projects that I did manage to rip out, and then I'm just working on ripping out the rest of my Forest Grove shawl. And then I did decide that I'm going to rip out my Tin Can Knits World Simplest Mittens. I'm going to rip them out because I ran out of wool to do the second one, and I'm just going to knit a smaller pair for a smaller human is the plan, and then use up the rest of that wool. I was thinking about what things I wanted to get, and spending money to finish a pair of wool gloves when I already have a bunch of wool gloves just didn't seem to align. So that was kind of my Super Bowl weekend projects. And then moving on, I got a couple other things done, which really does feel good. So this is the R&R Hoodie by Tanis Knits, or Tanis Lavalley, I think is her full name. And for this, what I had remaining was sewing on the zipper, and as you can see, I sewed it on, and I'm just so happy with the zipper. Thanks, Jane, for giving me her old zipper. I do need to figure out what to do at the top. So if you can see, I just cut the zipper. I bought these little zipper clips off Amazon, but they're the wrong size, and I'm really struggling to pull off the teeth. So if you've sewn a zipper on something and know how to kind of fix the top, that'd be awesome. I was kind of thinking, I tried with a pair of pliers even just to like malform the top teeth to see if that would prevent the zipper basically from going all the way up and off. I also want it to just be a little bit of a soft end because this is going to be on a toddler, and I don't want, I don't know if anyone remembers when they were a toddler and getting kind of like getting hurt by your zipper. That's why I actually purposely, when I attached the zipper, I tried to attach it to end it lower than what I was kind of expecting. I tried to end it right where the hood starts, with my goal of hopefully it won't be bugging them. And this was such a fun pattern. So this is a bottom up pattern. It's got little pockets. It's got this adorable, cute hood. I think hopefully we'll see how it fits, but this I knit with 200 grams of a worsted weight wool. So this one was actually knit in a Noro, I think it's Ugia. I'll make sure it's correct. It was like a cotton blend with a little bit of rayon, I think, in it, and maybe either it was like nylon or silk, something like that. It's a cotton blend yarn. I didn't really love knitting with a cotton yarn, but I think this is like the most adorable little hoodie ever. So you kind of, you do your ribbing. It is knit back and forth because you are gonna add the zipper in the end. And you kind of, at this point here, you end up casting on or doubling your stitches so that you can knit the front panel and then the back panel, and then you knit the two together. And then you keep going, and then you do your sleeves and you add them using a raglan. And then you do some increases for the hood. And then the hood construction is pretty darn cool too. You almost do it like a heel, where you basically, like, as you knit further and further, you start knitting stitches together, like these edge stitches. So you knit back and forth, and at every edge you knit together one stitch that's on your needle and then the next stitch. And then you go back and then you knit one stitch on the needle and then another stitch, and that creates this awesome hood. And then you finish this whole thing with like a I-cord edge. And with the zipper, I'll make sure to, I use Suzanne Bryant, I believe her name is, on YouTube. I love her YouTube videos. Her biggest tip with the zipper is make sure that you've blocked it and then you've let it dry for days. Because if you're using a wool, I don't think you have this with a cotton, but with a wool, it'll kind of like spring back into place, like kind of have a bit of an elasticity to it. So you want to make sure it's completely dry so that you don't get any puckering when you attach the zipper, because basically you want the wool to be in its like fully dry, fully relaxed state, how it's going to be later on, so that when you lie the zipper flat and sew it on, the fabric isn't going to change, because the zipper has no stretch to it, whereas the knitting has lots of stretch to it. And if you get the tension wrong with sewing the zipper, then you can get like puckering on the garment. Otherwise, sewing the zipper, despite the fact that it's just a finishing step, and I tend to avoid finishing steps like the plague, other than that, the zipper was really quite quick. I think I did it in an evening, like maybe it took an hour or two. You basically just line up the zipper, pin it, and then you just do the back and forth sewing, sorry, to attach it with a needle and thread. Here you can see. It's like pretty messy. It's not pretty on that side at all. But that's how simple it was. And I chose a really dark, kind of dark purple yarn, or thread, sorry. So you can't even see it all. I didn't even care. I think Suzanne Bryant in the video, she's like knitting on a white sweater and she's like a colored thread. So she's making sure to like kind of come up between stitches. You kind of go across the bars that run between like two rows of knitting, and you knit, over each bar. But because I was using a dark thread with a variegated or like multicolored heathered yarn, the stitches just got lost in it. So maybe that's a really big bonus of using a yarn like this, is that when you go to sew the zipper, you really don't have to care. I'd imagine if this was like all white and you had I think if you had a white thread though, I imagine you could do something similar. But then maybe you have to just be a little more careful about figuring out what yarn or which thread works with your yarn. So in this case, it worked really well. Sewing the zipper wasn't that time consuming once I actually sat down to do it. It did take me a while to figure out what zipper I'd like. So thanks so much, Jane. I realized for a kid's sweater, you kind of want a bigger tooth. At least I think the bigger tooth zipper looks good on a kid's sweater. So zippers have different numbers for those that didn't know. I didn't know. I think this is a size 10 zipper, which just means it has size 10 teeth. I don't know how they do the 10. And then also this is a top opening bottom, like it's an opening zipper. So originally I bought a zipper that is fixed at the bottom and the top, I think. Whereas this is, it's got the opening zipper so it can actually open. So I completely bought the wrong zipper the first time. So this is round 2 of the zipper. So that is that. I got this one done. So, oh shoot. I've been trying not to do that. That's so funny that I did that. Oh, it's actually pretty easy to put it back. I've been telling myself not to go, oh gosh, okay, I'll figure that out later. That is always a problem with, darn, okay. I pulled it off. It's gonna be hard for me just to let this go, but I do just need to let it go because, oh, there we go. That was easy. I just put it down on the bottom, or no, I don't know if I've made this problem worse. Okay, I'm sure there's a YouTube video on how to reattach your zipper. It's so funny that I did that because I was trying so hard not to. Oh well. Another project that I got done is the second sock for my husband. This is a kind of just a basic sock pattern. Didn't actually really follow a pattern. I used the Fidley Dyeworks BFL nylon yarn that I mentioned that was in the West Knits shawl. I went with caffeinated tea today, which I don't normally go for, but I was just so tired today. For some reason I had a big lunch and then I got wiped. So having a little bit of Earl Grey, which is with some cream, which feels good. So if I start to kind of perk up halfway through the episode, that's why. I also ended up putting lipstick on today. I was going through my cupboard and I bought a lipstick back in like October that I hadn't worn yet. So I was like, it's been 4 months and I bought this and I haven't worn it. So I threw it on for filming, which was fun. Okay, back to the yarn. So this is a local yarn. I love this yarn, as I've mentioned. This is my second pair of socks that I've made with this yarn. I haven't actually made socks for myself though with this yarn. So these socks are for my husband. So I'm not sure yet how this yarn actually wears. All the projects that I've made so far, I've given away with this yarn. And I think this will be my 4th project that I've made with this yarn. 2 pairs of socks and then 2 baby items. So these socks, I knit them on a 2.5 needle. So before I knit my husband a pair of socks on 2.75, and I just found it a little bit loose, so I went down. So I went to a US 1.5, and I did it on my kind of 9-inch circulars, which I love for knitting socks. They can take a little getting used to because you are knitting in the round, but I highly recommend it if you're thinking about it. So I ended up finishing the second pair. And unfortunately, because there was so much time between the 2 pairs, and I took these on a trip with me where all I brought was a tape measure, or I didn't bring a tape measure, I just brought the other sock. They're not identical. It's so funny. Like, even like the ribbing isn't the same length. This part isn't the same length. The heel isn't the same length. The width of the heel isn't the same. I don't even think I picked up the same number of stitches on the gusset. It's just like the length of the foot. It was not good. I did cast on the same number of stitches, so this is a 64 stitch cast on, and then I just did like a 1x1 rib at the top for about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Then I think I did like 7.5 inches down here, and then I just did like the classic gusset heel, and I like to do the slip one, knit one for the heel on the right side, and then you purl all the way back, and then you keep on going. And then you turn the heel with some short rows. And then my other kind of favorite tip with the knitting the socks that I learned from, I think it's Curious Handmaiden, is when you pick up your stitches along the gusset, I think this is called the gusset, and that first row you actually knit through the back loop, and that just creates a tighter bond between your gusset and your stitches going this way. So that's the kind of my little tip with socks. And then you end up doing your decreases every other row until you're back to your original cast on, which was 64 stitches in this case, and then you do the toe. So I'm very excited. This is the second pair of socks that I've knit my husband, and I went down a needle size. I also changed yarns though. The first time I knit a pair of socks for him, I knit them in like a superwash merino nylon, which was a little bit of a thicker, fluffier yarn, but then once I blocked it, it really kind of loosened up a lot and lost its shape. And this BFL, I don't think I'm gonna have that. So they did feel already a little bit tight on his foot. So I'm slightly worried that they're too small, not lengthwise, but widthwise. We're just gonna see how they wear. I think the tighter they are, well, maybe they'll be uncomfortable, but if they're super tight, I think they'll wear faster because you're putting, pressure, you're really thinning out the yarn with the pulling to make it fit on his foot. He, of course, said that they fit great, but he knows that that's really the only answer because they're done and they're complete. But I'm excited to actually see how these wear and how they wash, because that's always a big thing with wool, with socks. We do throw all our socks into the washing machine and then we hang dry them all. And some wool seems to do great going through the wash once. Some wool tends to felt, even though it is a sock yarn. So I'll get back to you on how these do. So this was the third project that I kind of finished or completed. I mean, if we don't count the things that I ripped out, which was great. And the other thing, oh, I'm gonna go grab it. I'll be right back, 1 second. I got this last thing, but I realize I'm gonna do this at the end when I talk about some acquisitions. So I have some bit of a big news in the sense that I'm actually pregnant. So we're expecting our first child kind of end of June, early July, which we're very excited about. And this month, or I guess in February, is when I learned that we were having a baby girl, which is exciting. And now it's kind of feeling a little bit more real, well, a lot more real. So I ended up going to the yarn store with a friend, Jane, and I ended up getting some wool for the baby. I know that February I was supposed to work only on projects that to kind of do some housekeeping or cleaning, I should say, but I ended up starting a new project, and it's a baby project. And you'll definitely be seeing a lot more baby projects in the next couple of months. I've kind of been going through what I'd like to knit and what I'd like to have done. The nice thing about baby projects is they do tend to be a little quicker. So this is actually going to be a pair of pants, and this is the Ellen's Coming Home suit by PetiteKnit. And I'm knitting this in this Vera yarn. This yarn was on sale at the yarn store. I ended up getting 6 skeins of it. So I think they're 50 grams each. Yep. There's basically no projects on Ravelry. There's 7 or 8 projects on Ravelry in this yarn. So it's a very not popular yarn, but it's incredibly soft. So it is a 50% mulberry silk, 30% extra fine merino, and 20% super fine merino, which I think those different qualifiers on merino, so super fine, extra fine, I think that relates to, like, there's this micron length in wool, which relates basically to how scratchy it is. And I think the shorter the micron length, the softer the wool. So I think that basically is qualifying the kind of merino. So I think this is like super soft merino. So this is ridiculously soft. The silk does make it a little bit more drapey, like just a little bit, you know, yeah, just drapey is the best word. It's kind of like a looser slipper. It's more slippery. So it doesn't create, you know, it doesn't stand up. It kind of folds, which I think will be absolutely perfect. It's this pattern. It's a top and bottom, and I'm doing it in the 6 to 9 month old size with the idea that maybe this could be worn around Christmas time. And what you do is you do your little band, and then you do a row of garter, and then we're gonna fold over, and I'm gonna stitch that down. And the pattern kind of calls for doing a elastic band through this, but I think I'm gonna do an I-cord edge or an I-cord cord, and then just kind of thread the I-cord through. I don't think we really need an elastic on a baby, and I worry about making it too tight or too loose, and then, you know, it's impossible to adjust. Whereas an I-cord, I could easily just kind of, you know, loosely tighten it up a little bit. I mean, at that point, she'll be like 6 months old, so she's not going to be getting into too much trouble. Her pants aren't going to really be falling down, I don't think. I don't know. We'll find out. I didn't think about doing the I-cord beforehand though, so I'll need to kind of maybe just like loosen up some stitches, like wedge them apart and like feed the I-cord edge through. I don't know. It's got a couple of short rows for the diaper bum, which is so cute. And then after you do the short rows, you basically just seemingly knit for a long time. I don't know how big babies are, but this is still very, I mean, this is still very tiny, but to me, this seems like a little bit, I mean, it's 6 to 9 months, so maybe it's good, but as you can see here, I've just separated for the first leg. So you end up doing some increases at the center on either side, just to kind of, I think, kind of create that separation. So you do some increases, and then you cast off a certain number of stitches between the legs. And now I'm just starting the process of actually knitting down that leg. So I bought 6 skeins of this yarn, and I've used up 1 completely for the top portion of the pants. And I think I was worried because it has a little hat too. So it's a hat, a sweater, a long sleeve sweater, and then long pants. Originally I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna run out of wool. But I think the pants might be like half the wool, which is fine, or a little bit, maybe like 2.5 skeins. And then I think the sweater will be a little bit less. Like this is actually quite a bit of knitting, this top piece. So I think I'm gonna be fine. If not, I can just, the hat is the thing that I'm gonna cut out. I actually wanted to do, I don't want to do a bonnet. I think I'm gonna do this other hat that I found. But be prepared for more baby stuff. It's hard to figure out what to knit. Originally I wanted to wait before kind of casting on too much for the baby, and I did kind of, I have been a little bit more tired, and I started a new job, so just the combination of that. I haven't been knitting as much as I had kind of in the year prior. So I'm just gonna see what I can do. My goal is to try to do like a newborn outfit, a 3 to 6 month old outfit, and then I have this 6 to 9, and then maybe a couple like sweaters and hats. So that's kind of my goal. I mean, the baby outfits, the nice thing is, especially as I do the smaller sizes, it's just less knitting. They're kind of fun because you get to try something new. Like when else would I get to knit a pair of pants? I'm not knitting a pair of pants for me, that's for sure. So the other yarn I picked up was this beautiful, it's called Life in the Long Grass. It is a oh my gosh, Ireland. It's from Ireland, I believe. This is another yarn that I picked up. Yes, Irish countryside. It is a fingering, 400 yards for 100 grams, hand dyed. It is 20% silk, 80% merino. And again, just buttery soft. It's this kind of gorgeous, it's like a soft pastel-y blues with little bits of pink and kind of almost yellow in there. So it's very soft. I haven't actually knit with silk before, so I've now got 2 silk merino projects, which makes the yarn a lot softer and a little bit more drapier and perhaps a little bit looser. So I think I'm gonna switch to wool, I think, for the other projects, just to have some contrast, but it's very soft for the baby, which will be great because I'll kind of see how her skin does. I know baby skin can be a little bit more sensitive, but for this, I'm going to do a project that I've already done. I'm actually gonna do this little sweater. And what's the sweater called? I've got it written down here. I got it on my iPad, sorry, but I've knit this sweater for 2 other times. This will be the 3rd time that I'm knitting this baby sweater. Oh yeah, here we go. It's the Itty Bitty Pretty Sweater. So I've knit that once before in pink for a little baby girl, and then I knit it once without the lace detail on the front or kind of in the sleeves for a baby that we didn't know what the gender was going to be, and it actually turned out to be a little baby girl. But it's a great knit. I think I'll probably do around the 6-month-old size for that. It's a lot of fun, very easy. I've done a lot of baby knits over the years because I've knit for friends and family. So I will be actually doing a couple of the baby knits that I really liked. I'm going to be doing them so I've knit 2 of those before. I'm going to knit a 3rd, and then there's some other ones that I have my eye on that I've made before and really liked. I did get something though that was absolutely adorable that I wanted to share, which if you know anyone who's having a baby that likes to knit, weave, dye, or spin, This is like the cutest book ever. I got this, Jane gave this to me. It is the most adorable book ever. So it's a children's book. It's about Wilbur, who is a sheep who likes to do his own thing. And all the sheep, he's making his parents worried because he's not following what the other sheep are doing. So for instance, they're supposed to, Wilbur had a little trouble carding wool today, said Ma. What happened? Said Pa. I carded my own wool, said Wilbur. No more tangles. And it goes through, so it goes through carding and spinning, and then I think it goes through dyeing and then weaving. It's such a cute book, and it also has such a cute message as well, and it's all with the sheep and the yarn. So I thought I just wanted to share in case someone else is kind of looking for, you know, a fun, maybe for themselves, a fun little new bedtime story, or perhaps for a friend as a gift. So I was going to open up what's in here. So as part of my February, I wanted to sew the back on my Fair Isle pillow, which I did not get around to. So I guess to recap what I did project-wise is I got I'm just looking over at the pile to count how many I did. I got 1, 2, 3. I just went through and counted how many things I got done. So I got the 3 knitting projects done, and then I ripped out 4 projects. So I got seven things done this February, which is pretty good. You know, not gonna lie, I was hoping for a little bit of a bigger number there, but this is the way things go. I got distracted, and honestly, I was just kind of wanted to start knitting a new project. I'm gonna continue in March, I think, to do a couple more of the easy ones. But back to this big fun package. I ended up, because I wanted to sew the back onto my Fair Isle Marie Wallin patch cushion, so I originally got pillows from Downy Down, which is a Canadian wool company, and they really didn't work. So I should have opened these earlier, because now I think I'm beyond the point where I can actually return them. But these are the West Elm down pillows, so I thought we could open them up and see what we think. First thoughts. I got 2 because I want to knit 2 of the pillows eventually. I should have enough yarn between the yarn that I have left over from like my Unst cardigan and from the first Fair Isle patch cushion. Okay, I think these are gonna take a while to like kind of fluff up. Whew, they stink like plastic. Whoa, not good. I know the down pillows tend to have a little more like feathered down in them, which makes sense because they're, what's the word? They're just throw pillows. So this is the 20 by 20, which is what I think the pattern says you should get 19, but my gauge was so off with that pillow. Yeah, so far actually thoughts are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with these, which is great because I think it's now too late to return them. So I think I like these better than definitely like them better than the Downy Down ones. So I'll do more of a full pillow review once I end up sewing this. I'm planning on taking my sewing machine out. I go on mat leave end of April, and then I kind of have like 2-ish months to get organized and, you know, maybe do some sewing. I'm planning on pulling out my sewing machine, and then that's when I'll probably get around to sewing this. And then I have some other sewing projects that I want to do, as well as I'd like to maybe sew some things for the baby, but we're just gonna see how things go. So thanks so much for joining. Happy first day of spring, and hope you have a wonderful March. Bye.